But there were two Russians, 3 to 4 meters away, with submachine guns pointing at me. I knew nothing of this. Well, one night when I was looking at the nearby hills through my binoculars, and I lifted them up a bit, and all of a sudden I could see the Viipuri castle. I felt stupid in afterthought, but it was quite a shock for me. I mean, so this is Viipuri, and there, right next to the city, is my own home farm. I mean, this made me really think. It kind of, this consciousness gave me hope and strength that it would be really worth trying. I mean, really believed that I should try to survive and hopefully someday return home.
The 6th Division of Major General Vihma was arriving in the Ihantala area, a rural area near Viipuri. Parts of it were thrown directly into counter-offensive.
The 6th Division arrived in Ihantala right at the last moment. Its Infantry Regiment 12, commanded by Colonel Hunste, was thrown into battle on June the 28th in order to counter-attack from Ihantala towards the crossing of Portinhoika and Pakkila roads. And at that stage, where the Russians were gaining this important Ihantala Church Hill crossing area.
The bloody, decisive battles were fought here. Ihantala was unfortified. Only big rocks gave cover in battle and shelter for resting.
Well, the large stones, of which there were plenty, were good hideouts. Or actually, you hid behind them. I remember this one night when the enemy artillery preparations started, and I knew the attack was coming, but, I fell asleep in the middle of this artillery fire. Well, something really started happening over there, and they fired at the hill where I was sleeping in a tent. I somehow remember in my dreams having understood what was going on and that I should get up, but I was too tired. I mean, probably if we'd have had to retreat, they would have had to leave me there or carry me away. You slept in the foxholes, and you ate in the foxholes, and you fought in the foxholes. All this time when I was there, we stayed in the same holes. Well, I have to say that in Ihantala, these supplies deliverers were fearless men, and they performed very well. I mean, there's not one time was I hungry because of food not having arrived on time.
Gradually, the full power of the Finnish artillery came into play. In defensive operations, the main tasks of the artillery were to suppress the enemy deploying for attack, to repel the attacks, and to support counterattacks. The fire observation of the artillery and mortars was well developed. A new fire correction alternator had been introduced during the war. This made it possible to correct the fire of all the artillery battalions on one single command by the fire observer. Of course, the precondition for this was that the scarce radio or landline connections would work. In these grand battles, the fire of up to hundreds of guns and mortars had to be concentrated into the same target area. Also, the artillery of the neighboring formations was able to fire at the same target within the limits set by their ranges and communications. When nearly 2,000 grenades were fired into an area 300 meters in diameter, the impact on the rocky terrain was horrific. Even tanks were destroyed in the inferno of artillery fire.
When we had been fighting for about a week, I heard this discussion. There was Colonel Hunts there, some battalion commanders, and also other infantry officers. So General Vihma repeated, "Gentlemen, I remind you that without artillery, this battle would not be possible at all." I also learned that infantry is the main branch. It carries a great responsibility, and artillery must give it all the possible support that it can give. It is partly information and partly that real artillery action. Since this was the basic idea, mutual relations were always good. At best, we could concentrate 16 to 20 artillery battalions and heavy batteries to the little area of Ihantala Church Hill, Pyöräkangas Tähtelä. Now, that is a maximum of 244 artillery guns fired. Yeah, you could say that in the Ihantala phase it took 3 to 5 minutes from the fire command for the shells to hit the Russians. Some weeks ago I met, by accident, an infantry officer who'd actually been there, who even now, as the first thing, thanked me for the Ihantala fire concentration.
In Ihantala, Finland was able to concentrate the fire of up to 20 artillery battalions, that is 240 guns, onto one target. The neighbouring formations needed the support of their artillery, so normally the enemy would get the fire of between 70 and 170 guns into their backs. Additionally, the mortars fired thousands of grenades. The Finnish president, Risto Ryti, had sacrificed himself on June the 26th by signing a personal letter of confirmation to Germany that Finland would stick by the Germans and would not negotiate a separate peace with the Soviet Union.
Finland had no other chance of being able to repel the Soviet Union offensive than President Risto Ryti promising Hitler, only in his own name, that Finland would continue the war. Without this, the German weapons and grain aid would have stopped, and we could not have continued the battle. It was a real deed from the father of the fatherland and a true statesman.
The provision of weapons and grain from Germany was resumed immediately. Finland received fighter planes, assault guns, artillery pieces, and especially important anti-tank weapons, the Panzerfausts and Panzerschrecks. Their hollow cone charge ammunition would pierce the thickest armor of the Soviet tanks. The use of these weapons required courageous fighters, because you could only make a hit from close range. Some on-the-job training was organized, but often enough, the first round was fired in real action.
Well, these weapons had not been seen on the frontier at all, and they were all in their original boxes. Nobody knew what they were or how to use them. Well, the boxes were open in command posts, and inside were the instructions in German. Well, having been a foreign exchange student in Germany, I understood German pretty well, and I started to translate these instructions. Now, there was a bright-looking private to whom I translated that this is this and this is what you do with it. And when you see a tank, you press here. Of course, he understood everything just like that. Well, after a while, the man took a bunch of them under his arm, and soon I heard that he'd hit 5 or 6 tanks after my quick course. Then these instructions in German were spelled out, but at first we didn't notice the warning about the flame. So, for example, our 5th Company Commander, Lieutenant Ahonen's pants behind was completely burned. Luckily, his jewels did not suffer when he used his Panzer Schreck lying down, and the flame hit his rump.